97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4 with Geoff Mosher, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast.
I love coaching this football team. I love coaching those players in there.
Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
It is Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by PlaySugarHouse.com. Sign up now. They'll match your first deposit up to $250. Geoff Mosher in on a Wednesday. Plenty to dive into as the Eagles get ready for Washington on Sunday. Hear the game live on 97.3 ESPN, your home for Eagles football. And as we have a lot of news and notes to get to, let's bring in Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Jeffrey?
Michael, Hunter. Hope everybody's doing well and excited for football tomorrow night. I know I'm pumped up.
Yeah, tomorrow night right here on 97.3 ESPN. We've got Chiefs, Texans to kick it all off. And, of course, you can hear Thursday Night Football here on 97.3 ESPN. Let's get into some of the news and notes today. There's a lot going on, man. Doug Peterson indicated early this morning that Lane Johnson day-to-day and that he was only going to do individual workouts. By the time practice started, it seemed like he was back at it because it seemed like there was some potential that he wouldn't be ready to play on Friday. Are we feeling better about that now? Because this offensive line has gone through some hula hoops to get to where they are.
It certainly has. I feel fairly good about Lane Johnson being able to play. Lane has a history of fighting through pain or injuries. I remember a couple of years ago, he had a MCL sprain, knee sprain, that usually would keep someone, especially a lineman, out for several weeks. I think he only missed 1 week and came back the following week. I believe it was against Dallas. Played fairly well that game. He's dealing with what Adam Kaplan has reported as an ankle issue. It's obviously kept him out of practice for a long time. So my concern with him isn't so much, is he going to start? Is he going to play? I think Lane, even and not at 100%, can go out there and play. The concern is that it's an ankle for our right tackle. You know, your vertical sets, your ability to plant, anchor, run, all of those things can be challenged a little bit when you've got an ankle that might still be bothering you a little bit. So when you look at that Washington defense and you know they've got Chase Young, you know they've got Ryan Kerrigan, you know they've got Montez Sweat, that's some pretty good artillery that they're going to be throwing at him. You just hope that Lane is healthy and well enough and is able to do everything he needs to do with that ankle to be effective in his blocking for Carson Wentz.
Is this the same ankle as last season?
I believe it is. I think Adam Kaplan reported that. And so, you know, you wonder no, you know what? Adam may have said he's uncertain about it. So I don't know that. I don't want to misquote Adam. But if it happens to be, then maybe you wonder if there's anything lingering. If it's the other ankle, it's just, you know, that's just how it is.
And who is next in line after Lane Johnson on that right side? Is it Mailata because it's the tackle position, or do you think it could be someone like Driscoll?
You know, that's a great question. I think everybody's kind of trying to figure that out right now as the depth chart, I believe, says that Driscoll is the backup right tackle and Mailata is the backup left tackle. But we also know that the Eagles have used their first backup offensive tackle as a swing lineman. But this is a year in which their backup offensive tackle, Mailata, doesn't have any experience playing in an NFL game. And so he might be a question mark at whatever position he would have to play if he gets in there. I know the Eagles like Jake Driscoll as a right tackle. They feel like right now, from what they've seen from him, because he got a lot of reps there, that's the best value to play him at the moment. So it wouldn't surprise me if he went in there, if he needed to play and played right tackle. I don't know that he would necessarily start. You know, I may have to see how Lane goes first, and maybe they tinker with Mailata, and then they may have to make a move. I'll say this. I do think at some point, because we've seen so many injuries on the offensive line the last few years, and because there's some age to this offensive line, it would not shock me at all if Driscoll does have to get out there and play at some point this season. Now, I think that he's impressed the coaches enough to earn that kind of responsibility. I don't know that they're ready to start him in a game, but if someone has to go out and they have to do some movement on the line, it wouldn't surprise me if Driscoll did get in at that right tackle spot.
Nor would it surprise us if we saw Nate Herbig or anyone, or even Jordan Mailata finally getting. It seems like this year, one thing seems to be evident is that you're going to need depth at that offensive line position. The Eagles have had it, but now it's going to really be tested.
It will be. I mean, it feels like it gets tested every year, but like you're mentioning, they've had at least some experience depth. Even in 2017, they had Big V, who really hadn't played. I don't even remember if Big V played at all in 2016. So they had to throw him into the fire there in 2017, and it was rough going. But they did have that year Steph Wisniewski, who was a veteran who had played at Jacksonville, played with Oakland, and was able to step in at left guard when Isaac Seumalo clearly wasn't ready and battling some confidence issues. They just don't have that ability, that luxury that they've had over the last few years of pulling experienced guys off the bench. And so it is a little bit of a guessing game on how a Mailata or how a Herbig or how a Jack Driscoll will play when everything's real.
Yeah, Jeff, so that's on the offensive line there. So obviously they've moved that thing all over. I do want to get your take on the Jason Peters thing where, he wasn't going to play, then he wanted more money, and then all of a sudden he knocks on the door, he says he's going to move, and Doug Peterson didn't hide it the other day. I mean, he was ecstatic, and he basically said he did what we were all hoping for. We're all thrilled. Is that not Doug Peterson essentially saying, yeah, he was asking for more money, but he changed his mind?
It almost seems like that's the read on it, right? It almost does feel like a breath of fresh air or the monkey off the back for Doug Peterson to now know that his left tackle is going to be Jason Peters and not either Jordan Mailata or Cordy Glenn or something like that. So I'm, in the ideal world, Peters does get to play left tackle for them, and then they can put Matt Pryor at right guard because Matt Pryor was absolutely not a left tackle. Now, the story that Peterson relayed about Jason Peters marching into his office and saying, yeah, I'll do it. No one can prove that's true or not. It sounds a little fishy to me, but if that's what Doug's going with, that's what Doug's going with. It wouldn't surprise me if there were some teammates, though, that kind of talked to Jason Peters and said, look, man, please do this for the team because we really, really need you, and this is our best chance to win a Super Bowl. And as we all know, Jason Peters wants to be on the field and win a Super Bowl, not just on the injured reserve list like he was in 2017. So maybe Jason Peters just kind of needed a little talking to and realized that what was best for the team was him being at left tackle, and that's also the best for his ability to be on that field and win that Super Bowl.
Do you think that they're actively looking to bring in another veteran on that line? I mean, it's hard to imagine JP playing 16 games and not taking any snaps off either.
Yeah, no, I think it's a big question. I thought that maybe they would have addressed that by now, Hunter. We'll see moving forward. I think all it would take is JP coming out of one game or somebody else getting hurt, and Cordy Glenn is maybe a phone call away, depending on if they liked what they saw from the workout. They clearly needed to add some players at other areas, right? Because they've got some injuries at wide receiver. They were thin at running back until they added Jason Huntley, and obviously they picked up Richard Rodgers. Yeah, they signed him yesterday. They started talking to him on Monday that I reported. So I feel like right now they at least have enough bodies and the offensive line, but I wouldn't be surprised if the roster changes a little bit as other guys get healthy and some positions start to get a little thicker there because of health, and then they decide to make a move.
Geoff Mosher, Football at 4. So let's look at this Jalen Reagor story because it seemed very doubtful that he was going to be ready to start the season, maybe not the second week, maybe the third week. He was out on the practice field today. Is that an indication that Sunday he might be ready to play, or is that just him getting out there because his injury allows him to do some things?
Yeah, so Mike, what I've been reporting on this has been pretty consistent since he got injured, and that was once they got the MRI, they saw that it was a very small piece of the labrum that had a tear. There was no surgery needed. It's still a little bit of a tear, but that was good news. And I reported that about the second opinion that he had that confirmed the first one, and that the swelling was down almost a day or two later to a point where he was feeling a lot better. And the reality is he has felt really good over the last, I don't know how many days it's been since he first suffered the injury, but he's felt really good, and he's on track to return sooner than week 4, I would say, which was what we originally thought he might make his debut. But he is, if this were a playoff game on Sunday, right, and the end of the year, he would play. But they see him, he's their first-round pick, and the team is very conscious about having him mature, progress, be in it for the long haul, and they don't want to take any unnecessary risks with a re-aggravation or any hits on the shoulder. So while he's able to do all this, and it's good that he's out there practicing and getting his conditioning, I would still say it's unlikely that he is going to play in the season opener. I think week 2, week 3 latest is a better indicator of when you expect him to return. I won't slam the door on it. I'm not going to say it's completely out of the realm. Clearly, the door is open a little bit whenever you're at least able to practice. But I wouldn't look at what you're seeing now of him practicing and fielding punts and stuff and say, all right, no doubt about it, he's going to be able to play. Because normally that's the case. If you're practicing, normally you play. But this is a unique situation where he's a first-round pick, he's a rookie, and they have had a lot of injuries at wide receiver. They still have that right now with Alshon being a little bit in doubt. And I just don't think they want to take any chances. So if I'm a betting man, I would say he's very, very likely not going to play in the season opener.
I'm obviously juiced up for the game Sunday, but knowing that Jalen Reagor probably won't be there, it's like I lose a little bit of that enjoyment, because let's look at it from a Deshaun Jackson angle. If he's not in the offense, you think, wow, this offense is going to look completely different. Well, I think Jalen Reagor can be a difference maker for this offense, so knowing he's not going to be in there, it almost hurts my anticipation. Do you think that's going too far?
Well, no. I mean, look, if you want to take a step back and look at it in the bigger picture, your first-round pick this year and your first-round pick last year are not going to be on the field, and that kind of sucks. I think you'd want to have high hopes for a rare skill position player like Jalen Reagor, and, of course, a left tackle in the makings in Andre Dillard, and they're not going to be on the field. And, unfortunately for Andre, it's going to be all year. So I get it. And I also understand, Hunter, the idea that this guy was brought in to provide a real spark, a real explosion. And almost, we've talked about this a lot on the podcast. I can't remember an Eagles receiver like Jalen Reagor over the last, 5 to 10 years. You've had guys like Macklin and Deshaun who win by beating defenses over the top with speed, right? And you've had Alshon Jeffrey, you've had Jason Avant. Those are guys who were not speedy, but could go get the football because they were so strong or had great hands. Well, Reagor has both. He is a guy that can beat you over the top, but he's also a guy who can just go get the football across the middle. Contested catches he was very good at TCU. He's kind of a combination. That's why he's a first-round pick, and you'd want to see that on display. And unfortunately, people will probably have to wait a week to see it. And, but the only good thing I would say, Hunter, is that Deshaun Jackson has had a great camp. He's healthy. He looks good, and we all remember what Deshaun Jackson did to the Redskins the Washington football team's secondary last year. And, I would also say when you have 5 playmakers on the field, your 2 tight ends, your 2 receivers, and your 1 running back, 3 of those 5 are going to be Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert, and Deshaun Jackson. That's still pretty good. And if Miles Sanders is able to play and contribute, 4 out of 5 is looking still pretty good.
Let's go there, because Miles Sanders returned to practice today. It's the first time he's been out there since he pulled his hamstring back in the first week of camp. Now, Peterson said he was day-to-day ahead of this game, but do we anticipate that Sanders not only plays, but that if he does play, that he has a full load? Because you've been talking a lot about, they're going to have a workhorse back now. They're finally going to have that guy.
Yeah, so he was limited today at practice. Everybody saw him out there, but on the official report, he was limited. He's got the hamstring, which we've talked about for a couple of weeks now. Even if I feel like he's closer to playing than not playing. I'm not 100% sure on that. I think they have to see how the hamstring responds to today's activity. But I think it's also realistic to say when a guy misses almost all of training camp and he's a running back and his conditioning is not like everybody else's, that it's going to be hard to put the ball in his hands 15 to 20 times on Sunday and just act like he's, like everybody else. So to me, week one, and maybe this goes to Hunter's point about being a little bit, wanting to see more, but I don't know that Miles Sanders can be that guy if he's able to play against Washington week one with all that conditioning that he missed over the last few weeks.
Geoff Mosher, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. And, of course, make sure you check out the Inside the Birds podcast ahead of week one here for more on the Eagles and Washington. Nate Sudfeld restructured that contract. It's converting $300,000 of that into incentives, so he gets the base salary. I guess the question is, was that just a procedural thing, or is there something Howie Roseman related there?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure 100% what's going on there and why that's done. I need a day or two to look into that, or maybe when you have Adam on tomorrow, he'll have more of that. Normally, when teams do that, they're just clearing a little bit of space, and we know that the Eagles want to have more space this year so that they can roll it over.
So they could give it to Jason Peters?
Cap. Yeah, right. So they can give it to Jason Peters. That's funny. Well, it is interesting. They bring back McCown. Like if Nate and I don't even know if this is a pay cut. This is really just moving money from one thing to another. But they may have said, "Look, Nate, you're doing this, or else our practice squad QB is going to be our number 2 QB in about 20 minutes if you don't let us do this." So
well, I love that you brought that up. I was going to ask, what is that entire McCown situation? I know he's making a lot of money to sit on some Zoom calls, but is this essentially just a quarantined quarterback, if you will?
No, I think it's really interesting. We talked about it on the podcast. The way Adam Schefter's report when he broke the news was worded was interesting to me, because he wrote, if one or more Eagles have come down with COVID and becomes an outbreak and an issue, well, now they can call up Josh McCown to play. And I was thinking, well, why one? It should be at least two. It should be at least two. I can understand if they felt like, it's week 4, first 2 quarterbacks are hurt or COVID, right? And they need someone to play, and they just don't see Jalen Hurts as ready because he's a long-term project. Well, then you want McCown. But why one? So that made me think, if Carson Wentz suffered an injury, forget the COVID, let's say he's out 3 weeks with an MCL sprain, is it Nate Sudfeld's job, or does that leave the door open for them to go to McCown? I still think it's Nate Sudfeld's job. I mean, they're paying McCown $12,000 on the practice squad, not starting quarterback and not backup quarterback. What did I say, $12,000?
Yeah.
Is that right?
$12,000 a week. Yeah. $12,000 a week.
A week. That's right. A week. I'm sorry, $12,000 a week. That's still not starting quarterback or backup quarterback money. So they would obviously have to adjust something if they thought he was going to have to play 3 or 4 or 5 games. So to me, it really is that he's just the emergency quarterback. To go back to Sudfeld, though.
Well, get real quick on that, because the story with McCown is that he's not even here. He's staying in Texas. He's not coming here.
Right.
This is essentially like, hey, and it could be a precursor to them wanting to try to coach in the future.
Well, I hope it is, because I think he'd be a really good coach, and he keeps him here with the team. He even said he's already kind of noticed some things with Carson. He's talked about it. He helped the wide receivers last year. I think he could be even a pretty good wide receivers coach, although all reports are that Aaron Moorhead's doing a great job so far. But maybe assistant wide receivers coach and work his way up, or assistant quarterbacks coach, work his way up. So there will be an opportunity, and I really hope that it works out that way, because I think he's really been beneficial to have as like an extra coach while he's been here last year, and even in the short time that he just re-signed.
All right,
I was going to say real quick on Nate Sudfeld that he had 300, according to Garofalo, he had 300,000 converted from his base salary into incentives. That means he may not get that 300,000, but in exchange, he got guarantees on his 1.11 base salary. At this point, if you're Nate Sudfeld, I don't know how much you're getting a benefit by saying your base salary is guaranteed. That just means that you're going to get 1.11 million. It almost means like it doesn't mean you're uncuttable, but the point is he was probably going to get that money anyway, because he's on the team and it's already in the middle of the year and he's established himself as the backup. I wonder if he thought he might be released over this if he did not agree to take have that money moved into incentives.
Yeah. It's interesting, that whole situation with them still moving some things around, because obviously I heard Garofalo say, hey, don't be surprised if they do something. But the Eagles were like, going out of their way praising Peters as this team player. And it was like, I don't know if it seems that way. And by the way, I thought that he was this team guy. I was shocked that he would have asked for more money like that. I thought, Peters is the consummate team player. So this whole story to me was just so off the wall.
Well, I thought the one thing was that, and I mean, we talked about this. I don't remember. I might have done it when Josh was filling in with you. I'm usually like kind of pro player, like, hey, you're going to play left tackle. You should be paid like a left tackle, so I can understand it. But in this case, I was saying that if Jason Peters and his representation did not build something into the 1-year deal, that he would be paid more money if he moved to left tackle, knowing full well that opportunity might happen. I mean, that's all we ever talked about, right? It's all offseason. Is Jason Peters going to come back? Is he going to play left tackle? Is Andre Dillard really ready? So if his agent and he didn't think it was important enough to build into the contract when he signed it, well, shame on them.
Yeah.
That's a miscue on their part, I thought.
Yeah, no question. And the fact that, he says, a guy gets hurt, and they say, hey, we want you to play left tackle. He says, well, if you want me to do that, you're going to have to pay me more money. I mean, that just sounds like, hey, listen, dude, you had a chance to negotiate that when you signed to play right guard, knowing there could be a possibility there could be an injury. So I blame him on that. But then all of a sudden, it just said you know what, I decided I'm going to play left tackle now. What do you know? Like, it just seemed like so far-fetched. But that said, he is at left tackle. Does this make him a better team? A better offensive line. A better offensive line, I guess, is a better question.
It's a good question. We had Greg Cosell on the latest Inside the Birds TV, which is up on our YouTube channel right now. And Greg has twice been on with us and said that in his tape study last year, he felt that there were times that Jason Peters really looked like a player in decline, and to the point where he looked like a liability. And I know that statement goes against what the analytics sites say. They still say he's a top 10 left tackle. Jeff Stoutland still touts that, and so does Jason. And maybe the left tackle play around the league has gotten so bad that even if you're halfway decent at your job, you're still top 5 or top 10. But, Greg is a very unbiased, objective observer, and he watches endless hours of tape. And he said you can just see, and I think we all remember, there were certain games last year, specifically against teams that do a lot of stunting and twisting on the left side, that it looked like Jason was put on his back a few times, and it did look like he was a liability. And he is now a year older. So while it's easy to sit here and say, yeah, he's way better than Andre Dillard because Andre Dillard was a big question mark. Okay, but is that still better than Andre Dillard at left tackle and Jason Peters at right guard? Now you have Jason Peters left tackle, Matt Pryor right guard. I mean, is this better for the future when you really wanted and needed to see Andre Dillard play and get better? So the question of are they better off is multifaceted. Maybe for the short term, maybe, and I say maybe assuming that Jason Peters is going to play at last year's level, but that's a little bit of an assumption because every year he gets older, you have to anticipate even a little bit more decline, right? Yeah. So on paper, it looks better, but I think there's a lot of questions to be answered.
Last one for you. Geoff Mosher, Inside the Birds podcast. What do you know about Jason Huntley? Is he in their plans? Could he be a kick returner? Is he a guy? I mean, Boston Scott seems like a third down kind of back. What do you know about Huntley?
Yeah, no, that was my first thought. I mean, when they claimed him, I thought, wow, that's surprising. I knew they were looking for a bigger back because they don't really have one of those. And this guy is not a bigger back. He's more of those smaller scat back, return ability guys. But there's good value in him because of what he brings. He was a 5th-round pick, has good quickness. And, I do think he can contribute on special teams as a returner. We'll see if he's out there in kick return. And, of course, if Miles has to be limited, he's another guy that maybe can get some touches.
All right, Geoff Mosher at Geoff Mosher NFL, the Inside the Birds podcast. The all-new ITB TV is up with Greg Cosell. Check that out at Inside Birds on Twitter and the Inside the Birds pod. Primed for a new season, new logo, new everything. They are with us tomorrow. It's Adam Kaplan in the house. We'll talk more Eagles with him and Andrew DeCecco on Friday's show. Anything big planned for football Sunday, Washington? You guys got anything special going on?
We've got some big announcements coming, Mike. So just make sure everybody who listens to Inside the Birds follows our podcast and our Twitter account at Inside Birds.
All right, man. We will catch up with you to recap the Eagles on Monday. Thanks, pal. All right, Geoff Mosher, Inside the Birds podcast. And, of course, he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline.